when I quit art class, I thought, seriously, Serena, another hobby I got completely obsessed with and then abandoned. But after I quit, I started drawing more, not less. So, why exactly did I quit?
The strange thing is, I had quietly been interested in art for years. I was just, always a little shy about admitting it. When I was around 12 or 13, my school took us to a museum, and our teacher told everyone to take out a sketchbook and just choose something to draw. And my immediate reaction was, oh no, I'm in trouble. I don't know how to draw. Like, what am I supposed to do? Then I saw this enormous taxidermized polar bear. And I thought, wow, this looks interesting. If I don't know how to draw, may as well just draw the most difficult thing. So I stood in front of it and decided to give it a try. What I did was basically kept looking up and down and trying my best to draw, and then hoping the two would eventually resemble the same animal sometime or some doodles later. When I was, frantically drawing, a lady walking through the museum stopped and looked at my page. She said, wow, that's really good. How long have you been learning? And I was thinking, learning? I've never learned. Later, my teacher even took the sketchbook and displayed it on our classroom bulletin board. That's like the holy grail when you're a kid. And I never actually got it back. She probably stashed it somewhere else. But the whole experience surprised me because I had never really thought of me as somebody who could draw. Even in regular art class, teacher would tell you not to smudge this color, use this color first. I would always make the, the orders wrong. And, my parents really didn't thought of training me in art or had the resources to do so. While some of my classmates had already been learning for years, they could draw so beautifully. Those people, when they draw a hand, actually resemble a hand instead of five sausages. So those were the people I considered actually artistic. I simply didn't put myself in the same category. So the lady's compliment didn't suddenly just prove that, wow, I have some incredible talent. But it did make me wonder, whether the label I had given myself might be wrong. Maybe there is something that I had never given myself the opportunity to explore. So fast forward many, many years later, when I had just started working and received my first pay raise, adult money, one of the first things I wanted to do was to spend money on an oil painting class. Oil painting felt like very official to me. It was the kind of thing properly trained artists learn. And I finally had my own money to try it. And this was a view I saw by the water in Greece. And I loved the scene so much that, the photo became my phone background. So when I finally started learning oil painting, this was what I wanted to paint. I think I wanted to do more than just keeping the photo. I wanted to recreate the feeling of being there on vacation and enjoying the sea breeze. And you can also probably tell I really like the color blue. So that's why, I wanted to draw something that resembles my favorite color. And it's really satisfying to learn to make a blank surface turning into something that, came entirely from me. What I didn't love was when I finished work, I had to run to the studio before it closes. And honestly, it was too much administration for a hobby. I wanted to paint, but I didn't want to turn painting into another appointment I had to rush to. So after a few months, I stopped going and immediately thought, oh no, I failed again. Maybe I wasn't disciplined enough. Maybe I wasn't really serious about art. But except deep down, I know I was still very interested. I still wanted to make things. But the class wasn't the hobby. It was only one way of doing it, And so I bought an iPad. And I don't really have an extremely serious, daily art practice, whatever. But I just have it here that makes it very easy to start whenever I feel like creating something. And these are some of the things that I've made since then. My style has actually changed a lot over the time. I used to draw little cartoon characters and give them very punny quotes. Now I might just begin with a few very fine lines and slowly use them to draw a feeling I have in my head. Sometimes I know exactly what I'm trying to make. Sometimes I'm just, honestly adding lines and colors until they begin to feel like something. And I find that process incredibly satisfying. When you get into the complete flow state when everything else becomes quiet for a while. And I'm not worrying about whether the finished piece is conventionally good. It's because it's only mainly to serve my purpose, what I enjoy. So yeah, even I won't really call myself an artist, and I would still feel a little shy if I tell my friend about it. But I don't need to be the most talented person in the room before I'm allowed to enjoy making something. I'm sure a lot of you have the same feeling. And I don't even need to call myself an artist. There's no application form, thankfully. I like drawing, so I draw. When I look for everything on the iPad, the previous oil painting drawings that I did, now I can really see the possibility that the lady in the museum noticed before I did. She just made me pause before completely ruling myself out and indirectly giving me the map to this private, undiscovered side of me, and I'm really thankful that I've given my interest more room to exist, and I'm much happier because of it.